what I'm going to do is just start by telling you guys about this CB2 and in conjunction with the Community Education Council, and as a result of meetings that I had with them about the issues with special education at our schools, most alarmingly at the middle and high school levels. We have started to spearhead a full-on special education reform process where we are co-sponsoring as CB1 these forums that the Community Education Council are holding with, neuropsychs, psychologists, Orton Gillingham teachers, teachers from our private schools that we are sending our public school kids to when they can't meet their needs. Schools like Churchill, Winston Prep, Mary McDowell. You've probably heard of some of these schools, Windward, Stephen Gaynor. They have sent representatives to each of these meetings. I've now gone to 3 of them, and it has exceeded our expectations in terms of what we've learned and the progress that we've been able to make. Community Board 2 identified a school building on Bleecker Street that they are proposing be the first freestanding LD school in Manhattan. Presently, there's only one other in New York City. It's on Staten Island, and it's a charter school, interestingly. But early signs are that it's doing really well. And, you've heard me say this before in terms of our successful schools, but, it always makes sense to replicate your successful models, and yet that's not what we're doing in terms of special education. The ICT model is 12 children that are accepted into any given grade from kindergarten. Actually, I don't think it's kindergarten because there's screening at that level, but first grade through 12th grade. And they are then mixed with, you probably all know this, so I'll say it quickly, but they're mixed with general education students to form this classroom called the Integrative Collaborative Teaching Classroom. And in that classroom, you have 2 teachers. One of those teachers is supposed to have an advanced degree to be able to teach dyslexic children, children with nonverbal learning, children that are on the spectrum, and attention deficit. What CB2 found when they did their research was an alarming amount of them do not have these degrees. A lot of them don't even have their masters. And in addition to that, they don't know what cohort they're getting in any given year because it is random, right? So the year my daughter was accepted to Millennium, out of the 12, there were 3 that were nonverbal learning or on the spectrum, and the rest were dyslexic, language-based. And the teacher they had in place was more familiar with the non-language-based support. So you can see that these kids were not set up for success. They also landed in a class of 37 because the school jumped from a 45 to 55% acceptance rate that year. And the DOE gave Principal McAvoy no route out. They wouldn't take the kids, they wouldn't reassign them. They just said, hope for the best, there's usually attrition, right? That's what they told him. So he had classrooms going on in the hall, they went into fundraising mania. It was like deja vu all over again at PS 234 in 2008. So, obviously, nobody at Millennium wants to fail kids. I think their special ed department, I talked to them because I was there. I've talked to parents at other schools that say their special ed teachers say the same. They do not have the resources. They don't have the resources to hire the people with degrees. They don't have the resources to be able to keep the class size down. They don't have the resources or the ability with the DOE guidelines to choose their cohorts so that they can better serve like an all language-based class or an all non-language-based class. But that's what the special ed schools do, right? So they have a teacher that handles language-based and a teacher that handles non-language-based, and they are not taking one child more than they believe they can adequately serve in that section. And that's why they charge $65,000 a year. So if they accept 8 and you're number 9, you're on a wait list. They don't just throw them in. And I think, when we look at this and we look at how successful they are from taking children who are failing in our general public education setting, and making really strong students out of them, that's where we should be looking in terms of the model for success. So CB2 passed a resolution, as you know, because we then supported it with our resolution, to advocate that only special ed teachers with advanced degrees, Orton Gillingham, advanced training to be able to teach children in special education, just like they have to have that degree for private school, that we make sure to move towards having those teachers in those positions at every public school, and then open freestanding learning disability schools throughout New York City as soon as possible. The number, I believe, and Christopher, you probably remember it because you were at a lot of these, 80,000, is that how many students with dyslexia they're estimating in our system?
Potentially just in Manhattan, 6,000. So the new school that we built will only take
That's all?
800 students.
Mm-hmm.
So it's needed.
Yeah, we're just scratching the surface, really. But the statistics, and I might have said this at that meeting when we passed the resolution, the statistics about were really striking to me were the ones that when you look at the incarcerated people in New York City,
Right.
that a stunning amount of them have dyslexia. Like, it's a very high percentage, and that people that don't get their needs met, especially around dyslexia, have really poor outcomes. And what was also interesting takeaway from the meetings was that diagnosing it at kindergarten, diagnosing it 2nd grade, 4th grade, 7th grade, and 10th grade have very different outcomes for the children. So in other words, if you're discovering it for the first time in 10th grade, you're in a much more difficult situation, which is why we were successful in getting the pilot launched for 19 schools this year. PS 234 was one of them, where the kids were all being screened for dyslexia in kindergarten. So
I haven't heard anything about that.
we haven't. I just reached out to Donna to see if and Magda to see if they can get me that information about how that's going, as well as some of their concerns, and they do have some enrollment concerns.
Well, and I'll just say that as a parent of a high-functioning dyslexic, when I went back to the elementary school, because I always kind of knew this, and we always had an Orton Gillingham tutor.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went back to the elementary school, and I was like, in 7th grade, we officially got Dean diagnosed, very high-functioning, very bright, but no question about it, completely dyslexic.
Mm-hmm.
The principal and his teachers were like, I don't believe it. Because he was so smart, he could work around. Because that's the thing in elementary school. You can get out of doing a lot of writing and reading if you're clued into everything else.
Well, I mean,
And-
they
and-
said a very high percentage of dyslexic kids are very intelligent, and they will find a way to cope. But
And
I have a
it's
daughter
not-
who has
middle school is when it shows up.
Well, you really hit the wall in 10th grade, because what'll happen is the ICT classes in middle school, generally if you pick the right school for your kid and you get in, the class sizes are still a little better. It's still pretty nurturing. Most parents are still in really close touch with the teachers. They're, expecting to have tutors. But once they graduate, if they're doing really well from middle school, they're applying to to public high schools. But what happens is when the workload increases and the pressure increases, the kids who have been finding those runarounds, it takes them longer, right, to be able to read. It takes them longer to figure out a problem, but because they're intelligent, they can. But when the workload triples and the pressure is on for college is when you start seeing the fallout, which is why they're so focused on this middle school.
Right.
That's what they're looking at with the Bleecker Street School, is to be a 6 to 8 or 6 to 12. That's when those kids get into trouble, and then it's really late, to then go and try to remediate. That they really feel like getting ahead of this and making sure that even if an A student has been diagnosed by a neuropsych with dyslexia, that child receives services. Period. End of statement. I'm going through this with Helen. They're pushing back at Beacon for any services because her grades are good, but she's up until 2 o'clock in the morning and having meltdowns. So I think that it's important to understand what dyslexia is. It isn't even on their list of disabilities at our schools. So that was the first order of business, is to get it, approved as a disability. And once we do that, then I think we'll have more success. We also have to, I'm going to put up on the website that we have located, finally, a good list of alternatives to the $7,000 neuropsych. So we found that hospitals work with doctorate students, and they are as cheap as $500 for a full neuropsych. I'm sure you have to wait a little bit, but there was a nice $500 to $2,500 range of alternatives to that neuropsych, because the DOE has no plans on conducting full neuropsych evaluations, which is, of course, what's necessary to diagnose dyslexia. A lot of parents didn't understand that. They thought if they just let the DOE do the evaluation, that they would come up with that diagnosis, and when they didn't think their child was dyslexic. We had a tremendous amount of hands go up over that at that first meeting, which is obviously concerning. So the purpose of the forum is to spread the word out. We've been sending blasts at CB1. I'm asking everybody to do some outreach and push out to people who might not be on this mailing list, because we're trying to increase the mailing list.
Is there a PDF or what are you sending out?
It's all going to go up on the website.
So if someone sends me something that I don't have to reconfigure, I could probably send that out to a lot of people.
I'm going to have it
a
in.
lot of young parents.
I'm going to have it in
We
one
have a
email
lot of
for you.
3, 4. It's best in a constant contact. How are you sending it? How are you sending it out?
So
Not
right-
to be too digital.
No, it's going to be pretty simple. How it came to me is how I can send it to you, Bob. But what we are going to do is I'm going to talk to Lucian about having a spot for it on the CB1 website,
So I could link it.
so people can go to it. That's what CB2 is doing.
Great.
So,
And the other thing is, I didn't see the presentation, but I'm sure understood.org is in there as well.
yes,
Yeah.
they are in there. Chris?
And also the whole forum is on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
There's a link at the end of the presentation where you could rewatch.
Send me something and I'll put it in.
The
my
whole,
weekly
the whole
notes.
forum, like you can sit through the 2 hours if you want.
Because parents also need, young parents need education in recognizing it, because it could turn, a pretty emotionally stable person into it could create a lot of problems in the home.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and that's, I know of cases that it has. When School of the Future, my friend's kid was in School of the Future. They just did not deal with it, and 15 years later, he's in jail, just like you say.
Yeah,
And he's a smart boy,
I know.
and so that's very important. Do you think the school in the village is it's not gonna be just for dyslexia? Will it be like ADD and?
This one's going to just be language-based, and there's a bunch of reasons for that.
Probably treatment.
The first and foremost is the outcomes for dyslexic kids are much worse, believe it or not, than nonverbal. And that they really feel as though we have to do first things first, since we're not going to meet the needs of even a tenth of the dyslexic kids at this school.
Okay.
But it certainly can be a model
Right.
for seeing how it goes and setting a model for future schools to open, and eventually matriculating the ICT class out altogether, which, as
It's
I was
amazing
doing
that
my research,
20 years ago, everybody wanted to combine the students, and now they're sort of like taking them and putting them in, it was mainstreaming.
it doesn't help a dyslexic child to be in the presence of kids who aren't dyslexic. And nobody ever really thought that through. It doesn't make them smarter or better in any way. It makes them feel worse about themselves. So that's the thing that boggled my mind.
Right.
And
Yes, I agree.
so, attention deficit was so much more common with a myriad of kids. But dyslexia really made those kids hide and overcompensate and do, again, like, you don't want to do that especially to a teenager when they're going through puberty. It's like putting gasoline on the fire. So that's why we felt really passionate about that. Obviously we'd love to have
You can only do certain
Yeah.
one thing at a time.
one thing at a time. It's not going to help any of our kids, but I think we can put some things in place that are going to help other
It'll,
people's
in
kids.
the end, are people saying it's going to save the city money? Because in the end, if the kids end up going to a public option as opposed to a private option, it's cheaper.
It's not.
I was thinking that too.
It's actually not. I saw the numbers.
It's about the same.
They're counting on you. They're counting on the system to stay exactly the way it is because not that many people can navigate the lawsuit,
Oh, I see.
paying up front.
Got it.
That whole thing is super complicated, and
I got it.
you have a first generation family, and it's like swimming without a life jacket. It's
And the DOE does things much more expensively than other schools.
yeah.
So
Well,
they-
that school will be $200 million to build,
Yeah. Well, another
and then you
school
have to
would be
staff
100
it,
million.
and then you have to staff it with
Right.
people with those degrees. So the
It's not a saving. I got it.
it's an investment in the kids, right? So the argument, the way you lobby it to the city of New York is to say, how many people do we have incarcerated that could have been saved? How many failures to the system do we have? Look at the graduation rate, tie it to that. We have to be able to use data in a significant way to get them to change. Because it does come down to money, as you know, over and over again.
I don't
And
think you're going to get.
I think we maybe, one other thing that might be helpful is that, the woman who was my tutor, who got her Wharton Gillingham certificate first,
Mhm.
then she went to Columbia to become a reading specialist. She was actually pretty horrified how little time
Yeah.
Columbia spent. And she wasn't being a general teacher, she was becoming a reading specialist.
Mhm.
There was a lot less time teaching how to teach than she actually got in the Wharton Gillingham
Yeah.
instruction that she had. So I think we should also write to the schools that are training our teachers that the teachers themselves, so one, just general teachers, but then even the reading specialists. I mean, Columbia's kind of a big deal.
Mhm.
That Teachers College did not spend that much time on how do you teach dyslexic kids if you're going to become a reading specialist. So many of our reading specialists haven't been trained.
Right. They go to basically a workshop, right?
Right,
They
and
do
it's
like a
not that
2-month
kind of thing.
workshop and they say, I've been trained in Norton Gillingham.
And it's not that type of thing. So I hope that as part of this, we actually reach out to the schools themselves and say, get in touch with the Yale Center that, they've done so much science on how the brain is wired now, and can you update your whole
Well, that's what the
curriculum.
person from Sterling was saying.
Mhm.
I think it was Sterling. It was the neuropsych. It was one or the other. That she had gone to 2 such Orton Gillingham workshops, and it wasn't until she went back to school and learned the science of reading
That's right.
was she able to really understand how to teach children.
And Yale has mapped the brain, and they have done all the science, and that's what people need to learn.
So, it's going to be a process, but I really personally believe this is going to really be one of the things that is a game changer in terms of graduation rate here.
Yeah.
So, did we get that to work?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to flip through this super quick because I wanted to, CB2 and we're in concert with this. But obviously, I just, yeah, sure.
Really
I just-
quickly before you move on, I was just wondering, is this mainly parent initiative, mainly for parents or for students themselves as well?
Both, everybody.
Well, I
You-
mean, like, what's the turnout usually been? Is it like more parents? Is this more parents?
It's definitely more parents because they're there to talk about their children and they're there to learn about what they can do when they start to see symptoms. So it was mostly parents, but everybody's invited.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because I work with the Department of Education on the Chancellor Student Advisory Council,
Mhm.
and last year they added a student voice manager who specifically works on kind of this sort of issue of like what haven't students sort of received that they can receive in
Mhm.
terms of like help. And I was just thinking like it might be good to like bring this just under her attention in some form.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that would be.
I'll email like the video.
All right, good. The next one is in early March. I'll have we'll be sending out a blast on it. We're going to have one a month. We're going to try. And it's really CB2 and CEC that are Emily Hellstrom, who's in our community district. Do you guys know her? I think she was a public member here at one point. She's a PEC slip parent, and she has really been the one from the CEC that spearheaded this. I think her child has a learning disability. And Janine does too. All three of us have kids with learning disabilities, interestingly. So anyway, so I'm just going to go through this super quick because I really just gave you like, oh dear. So this is
That's
Millennium.
okay. Just
So
scroll up and down.
this way? Oh,
Yeah.
good. So in case you guys just want to take a look at who was there, this I thought was interesting. This was the panel. And, you know, I just took a screenshot of it because I want to go meet with these people, actually. As we go to envision the school, they're going to be, and they do think they're going to be successful getting the school. It's just going to take 6 years. But they're going to hopefully envision it with people like this. They were really phenomenal, every single one of them. So we went through that. Wait to fail system is what we're in right now. And that's pretty much it, I think. Psychoeducational evaluation is what's missing. This is something I didn't know. I'm glad I went to this slide. So I learned something, that the DOE, you can sue them to send your child
I didn't know that.
to one of these schools, but you can also sue them to make them give you a neuropsych. Did not know this. Really good information. So that is important as well. Now you could end up at one of the universities with a doctorate student, but who cares? They're going to pay the $2,000, and they should, because they should be providing neuropsychs at the public school level.
Well, the way it's explained to me is that they won't do it unless your child is actually failing.
Well, that was a part of the discussion at this forum, was that
Because that was the thing, is like, I know there's a problem, but they were like, no, there's no problem because there's no failure.
you still can fight if your argument is that your child is having trouble reading. You can push back on that and apparently make them pay and insist on it. So whether you might need someone outside to meet with him one time, so you pay someone $400 to meet with him and give him a reading evaluation, that's what we did, and they could identify it right away. And then go back to them with that bit of information. But they told us that you just have to be deliberate in your approach and you will get it. And you have to be specific about what you're identifying your child has. And if you have trouble, you are supposed to go to your district superintendent. And they are supposed to help you if the school is pushing back. Yeah, this is a law that's not being implemented. So this will be a great thing for parents to go and be able to see on the website.
Right, and I think most schools don't have the resources. That's the thing.
They don't. And that's why, parents are under this false belief that the school is going to take care of them. And we have to change our thinking and know that the parents have to push the school. They're also pushing to make sure this literacy expertise happens well before the LD freestanding school is built. That's the first part of the initiative, which is going to create issues for people in those positions right now that do not have those degrees, clearly.
huge change in culture
Mm-hmm.
that we just have to have this is not a quick fix.
Oh, that was the other thing I learned. You see this number 4 here, right to representative of choice at the meeting? I didn't know this, but I could have my neuropsych come to the meeting. And so if they start to push back and say, your child isn't this, they don't need that, the neuropsych can be there to support you with their experience with your child. Ours didn't charge us. So after we had done the evaluation. So that could be really helpful for people who are, going and not having results.
Yeah, I think it's just culturally, even when you have it, then when you get pulled to get extra help, the extra help is not good.
Right.
So, that's what, my son's like, don't make me go, it's not
Yeah.
helpful.
Well, I mean, if you have a child who's dyslexic and has ADHD and they go for extra help and there's a line of 7 kids,
Yeah,
how are they going to handle that?
it's
Not
good.
well.
Yeah, it's not good.
So, and that's what happens in high school.
Yeah, it's not good. I guess the good thing is you get time, extra time. Okay.
Yeah, so these are, this is the brain of a child pre and post intervention with dyslexia. That was pretty impactful.
What does it mean, the brain lights up?
Yeah,
Mhm.
everybody's brain is different, but it's the reason why multisensory approach works for dyslexia is because the pathway of reading, it goes a longer path, and it usually gets, the thinking process is, atypical.
Right.
And so a multisensory approach works, which helps then light up other parts of the brain.
So this was.
That's why you do skywriting when you're learning your letters, and you do the sound and the skywriting at the same time, so your whole body gets involved. So it's, it's you can still learn it, you just have to learn it so the pathway is different.
Well, what they found was on this slide, which I thought was another really interesting slide, was that they're fighting for learning specialists at all schools, and they want exposure to all children, because as you can see with this
Everyone
ladder,
benefits, yeah.
well, 10 to 15% absolutely have to have it. 40 to 50 really sort of need it. 35 would benefit from it. Only 5% of our children would not benefit by having learning specialists.
Right, 'cause they just learn anyway. Yeah.
That's a
It's just
big
working
number.
with her is a big dyslexic. And that's what she was like, she's like, I could memorize everything if I was acting it out. Or if I could see someone acting it out, it sticks, but I could never read it and have it stick. So, we all think in different ways.
So that's where the school is for those who are interested in that.
What is there? What is there now?
I don't know. It's a good question, Bob.
Warren Williams grocery store.
Oh,
They're gonna tear that down?
Yeah, it was part of the NYU 2021 plan.
oh, right.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to live on the site. I'm going to send it to you, Bob, in a PowerPoint,
Okay.
along with some links. So we'll get that up, and please, spread the word.
Okay.
That's really
Who put that together?
The Community Education Council and CB2.
They have a staff, a professional staff and that's pretty professionally written. The CB2 didn't put that.
No,
in
no.
my-
I mean, in terms of the content,
Yeah, yeah.
it was all these people that were on that slide.
Oh, it was, okay,
Yeah.
they worked on it. There's like a task force to put this together.
There is a task force, and so they
So
will
it's pretty,
take their information
Yeah.
and cull it, much like we did with overcrowding.
I got it, I got
Yeah.
it.
So it will be ongoing there. The next meeting is in early March, and that one is about passing that legislation. So it's really important to come and support that and learn more about it. I'm sure you'll be there. And that is going to be, again, I think it's March 6th?
March 9th.
March 9th. Oh, yes, thanks a lot. All right, so I think that's that.
And you know, the one thing too is I think the stigma around dyslexia, like for, we don't have any stigma, we're over it, right? But I
Mm.
think for a lot of parents, especially, you know, first generation or whatever, there's a lot of stigma if your kid is falling behind.
Mm.
We need to say, your kid is smart, they just have to learn in a multisensory way.
Right.
You know, that has to be a big part of the, you know, I just think that there's a,
Well, I mean, they naturally do that. The learning specialists have, I mean, they don't just have the tools to teach them, they have the tools to, you know, but that, I mean, that's their whole approach is they normalize it and they help build their self-esteem while they are actually administering the literacy lessons.
I think the thing is that that's like, you're talking about once you get to the specialists themselves, I think the big problem is that
Right.
kids are never gonna get to that specialist because like, in that family, like culturally, there isn't a necessity for this. It's like, if you're falling behind, it's because you can't do well enough and you're not
oh, you
smart.
gotta try harder.
Exactly.
Right. Well, hopefully some of these forums can and you know, hopefully what we're going to have on all the different community board websites. We're really looking
It's important.
to connect with all the community boards and provide this satellite situation for parents to be able to go to, because right now they're going to the DOE and the DOE doesn't want to serve them. That is a conflict of interest. I mean, you can't
Right.
have that.
So like when you mentioned the psychoeducational education, or
Mhm.
like evaluation, sorry, at what time is like that supposed to like what's the ideal time to get that done?
I mean, well, they're thinking that by screening children for dyslexia, which almost always walks in hand with attention deficit, interestingly, if they screen them at the kindergarten level, right, and just have that be automatic, that they will then catch almost all of them.
Mm.
And by that time,
So the idea would kind of be that if you're enrolling into New York City public school in kindergarten,
Mhm.
you get screened then, but if you're coming in after, then you're getting screened when you're coming in.
if you're coming in after, unfortunately, you have to self-advocate, and that was.
But like the
Uh-huh.
ideal world scenario is in which
They didn't have a cutoff. They just showed lower outcomes as you became older.
No, but
Uh-huh.
my point more so is that if we're trying to get, let's say like the DOE is like nice enough to say, oh, we're going to do this, like the ideal setting is in which you get this evaluation for every kindergartner.
Right.
And from there on out, if someone else is enrolling into public school at any time, they
Immediately.
should have
Well,
this
they
done
always,
at that point.
I would say the teachers do a reading level like at the beginning of every year, and you know, it's one of those things that the teachers now don't
The
have
Mo's.
permission to say, I see your kid is having trouble reading, I would recommend you do the following. They just stay silent. They'll say things like, well, you know, they just need a little more time, or, you know, these types of things. There's not the advocacy from the DOE to say early on, I would recommend.
And that's the problem. They just see their cohort, right? They give the kids those Mo's tests. So they call Mo's, right? They give them the test to see what kind of cohort they have, and then they're like, "Oh crap! I've got like 10 kids who are reading below grade level," and I don't know what actions they take based on the results for the Mo's. I mean, that'd be an interesting question. But Wendy's right. They're not out there to say, "Oh, I've got 10 kids who need a literacy specialist. Let's get one." That isn't generally how that goes.
Well, I'm
Or
talking
even-
step
or
at a
even-
time. Like literacy specialist is like,
Or even to screen.
no, I'm
So-
talking about screening. Like
Yeah,
I'm
so
saying
even
like
if you
that's
have
the
like a-
start.
if you have
Any
a
entry
secondary
point-
reading load,
Any entry point to the public school system, they should be screened. So let's say,
That's what I'm
yeah.
Yeah.
essentially saying. Yeah.
But to be fair, you know, screening takes time and resources, everything else like that. That's the thing the DOE will say is that we
Well, the
don't
pilot
have-
was expensive, and we only covered 19 schools.
That's expensive.
But it's a lot more expensive to put people in jail.
How much is that?
It's a good. Do you know the number of the screening? I don't know how much it costs, but it was in the hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands.
I
for
think
how
so.
How many kids is this to make in schools?
19 times 25, something like that.
So small schools.
Small, yeah. I mean, you know, you don't really have more than,
But to your point, it's worth it every time. Like every kid you catch early, it just really changes the life.
yeah, it does.
I mean, I'm trying to think from also their point of view.
Mm.
Like,
They do not want to do this. They have already run the numbers, and they
Yeah,
know that it is
I-
cheaper for them to send some of our kids to these
Yes.
private schools than it is for them to.
that's what.
Wow.
It's
And we're just going to force them into doing it because it's the right thing to do. That's really the bottom line. And it will be more expensive than doing it how they're doing it now.
Well, and I do think that we need to really advocate for the teachers that are being trained right now in school to say that to the professors, you know, the science has changed a lot.
Mm,
Columbia, you know, all these other places, they are not keeping up with the times.
right. I think that is part of the resolution,
Yeah.
but I'll double check it. So that will be ongoing. We'll probably be reporting on this until it's passed and the school has been approved. But we are going to, you know, we see this as something we're going to, hold hands with community boards across the country and hopefully do some advocating at the federal level, not during this presidential regime, but hopefully the one after in the fall. So moving along, Millennium. This is a little old news now, but we didn't meet last month. They finally broke ground on the 14th floor. We have a little picture. Margaret came, she talked, and the chancellor came, and Colin was there. There's Karen Lindmark from the DOE, the deputy chancellor's next to me. Everybody came. It was fantastic. And everybody spoke. Gail Brewer came. She's not in the picture, but she came. And she talked, and they're still trying to backpedal a little on the enrollment part, but I said it in my speech, how grateful I was that they were not increasing enrollment as they increased the space. And Karen said, that's our goal. And I said, that's what was agreed on.
That's the right
So we had a little thing as we were leaving, but I told Colin, and I met Tom Taratko, who I'd been talking on the phone with for 18 months, and we're going to make sure to pave the way for Colin to not accept more students. They built more classrooms than he asked for, and their excuse was they had to do that because of the way they fund the school. So it's kind of like a winky wink, but we're going to make sure that they don't make him take any more kids.
My twins were in 8th grade. One of them put Millennium first, and one of them put it second. So I'm definitely very interested
Yeah.
in this topic.
We're also kind of surprised. They were saying 2022, and I was like, wait, you said 2021. He goes, well, with any luck. And I'm like, let's do 2021, Tom.
Oh, then the space would be ready.
Yeah. So I'm really hoping that we're going to give them a little push on the time frame too, because it's not a complicated build out, and it's already demoed, as you can see.
22 is really long. I mean,
It just takes them longer. Like I said, it's my favorite line. If it was Larry Silverstein, it'd be done in September. Anyway, so we're going to push them for 2021. Even mid-year would be great. And if we can't, that's what they're guaranteeing. So we're hoping for the best. It's really exciting, and they need it. Their enrollment's down this year, thank God. So I think he's going to underdo it and until it's built, because of that situation that happened last year. So that's great news. We're really excited. It's moving right along. I'm going to be dropping by every now and then to check on it, and we'll report back. I sat there on my way out and watched the cars go over the speed bump. It's a pretty lame little speed bump, but it did slow people down, and they did finally agree to paint it. Because before they had no yellow paint on it. And so people were just like, so now they see it, now there's a sign, they're slowing down because they're seeing the sign, I think, in the paint, honestly. But there is impact. I'm happy with that. And then our last item, because the youth ballet is postponed till next month.
She's right back there.
Dennis was going to work on that, and he's been hitting a wall.
Okay.
So I need to spend more
So
time.
we're not talking about it today?
I just thought that I have some nice letters and just wanted to leave with you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even see that you were with us.
No worries.
Didn't
I
they-
know we were switched.
Oh,
but
okay, I
thought
wanna make sure you got the
probably
message.
later this afternoon, but I wanted to just leave them.
So Dennis did try. He spent a lot of time on it. He hit walls everywhere.
Dennis.
Mahalski. I'm going myself. I'm going to go over there, and I'm just going to see what I can do. And so
And I-
definitely leave me.
And there's some nice letters from Millennium. We
Oh,
have
great.
Students there, they come on
Oh, good.
scholarship, and we're working together.
That's super helpful.
And Lisa Wong says hello.
Oh, good. Okay,
What
great.
is the time that you're asking for the space?
As we did last year, we just asked like for a date in the spring and a date in December. With enough, planning, we can let our families know.
A weekend date?
Would be ideal.
Yeah, it would be.
Okay, so each of these has the same thing in it?
Yep.
Okay, terrific.
Some
So
letters of support and then.
I can't believe
email
Jessica
that
did.
you say
Oh,
they're
that's-
Lisa just wrote me too, they have nowhere to graduate their kids.
Yeah,
So
she was
it's like-
mentioning that would be a wonderful place. She wanted to know the exact seating.
Right.
Stuyvesant, it's been a few years since I've been there, but I think it's around 900.
Well, I'm gonna go take,
76-ish.
Tell me again.
870s. I can tell you.
Is it? Yeah, I used to know.
Who's the
I did
principal
ticketing,
there
like-
now?
I have it.
this gentleman, he knows everything Stuyvesant.
Who's the principal at
Eric
Stuyvesant?
Contreras.
Who?
Eric Contreras.
We left a message and didn't.
I talked with him.
You can tell him how to keep.
And the Battery Park City Authority does not control the auditorium
No.
anymore.
They used to at one point.
I know.
Not into the original contract by the
They-
the sign.
You know what might be great is for us to go together. Do you wanna do that?
Oh God, you're gonna get me killed.
No, I think it's-
I'm happy to come. Yeah.
I think it, you know, I mean, you're a member of the,
So just a very quick thing though, but like one of the reasons that even our like theater community and like our events in this auditorium have been held up like this year and last year is that our lights and sound is actually breaking. All of it's like not working. So that's
I know
one of the,
Kern left a few years back.
What's not working?
so we have our theater, the equipment that they put in was older than the building itself when they built the building because they were running low on budget. So what they did in that time was they just took old stuff, and now we can't like replace any of the lights or sound equipment because the company that it is from is no longer existent. So we're trying to replace all of like light and sound equipment because like literally the cap lights in the catwalk
Excuse
are
me.
burned out and you can't put in new bulbs or replace any of them.
Sounds
It's a very
like a capital project under the.
yes, but the amount of money
Good
is
luck with
in
that.
the millions because of how big the auditorium is, and no one wants to fund that as a part.
But does it mean that they can't have events right now at
Oh
all?
no, it doesn't mean that, but that's one of the issues has been that letting an outside party come in when they're already broken for the school has been a concern because our theater community's production last year was canceled.
well, then that's a great little thing for us to know. If we can make that happen, maybe we can do a deal. Yeah. So that's why,
So,
so I'm gonna look into that. I'm meeting with Trinity also.
Yeah,
So,
we applied for that, but they
well, they're gonna
it's
come
like
next
they
month.
said it's not enough actually. So we applied for the FY 1921. That was spent on that. Margaret Chin also chipped in when she had the participatory budgeting round or something for schools. And like someone else, one of the other city council members or someone did. But it's like it's just the amount of money necessary is so much. And on top of that, like it's just like our building has problems. That's what I'm saying.
right.
Just
for lights.
Well, that's what that money's for. So, you know, I think we have been very successful with getting discretionary funds for schools. So let's just stay positive on that. And I'm going to try to get that meeting. I am meeting with Trinity. I'm hoping maybe, you know, I'm doing a walkthrough of that space. I don't know how big their big space is, but I'm going to find out. And maybe they have other space that they can, you know, make available for us as well. So it's always a big challenge.
Elizabeth, how
So-
big is the group of parents? I know we've been through this every year, it's like a deja vu.
We're about a 40-piece orchestra. And since
Right,
last
it's the
year,
stage, not the
we were-
audience.
how
It's
big
the
should-
size of the
Stage.
stage,
It's
not
the
the
whole thing
audience.
together, even BMCC, their largest facility, is not big enough to accommodate the orchestra. And we've looked into other more uptown venues, but the parents.
Ella
really-
Baker, you've looked into that.
Yeah, but the parents really would like to keep it in the neighborhood.
Does Ella Baker suit?
And you looked at
Your
Murray
needs.
Bertram, right?
It could, we've been also to High School of the Humanities, but the parents really,
Your parents?
yeah, we have a lot of downtown families and it would be ideal
Well-
to have it there. We were there for many years.
I got
And
it.
just some good
I
news,
understand.
since last year we have our own space.
No, I
We're
understand.
at 16 Beaver Street, we have
Right,
it's
right.
it's a perfect space.
That's the best.
That's
And
fantastic.
we're trying to open it up to the community and do whatever we can
Yes.
to be a part of things. And
Yeah.
even if we could
So you
raise
wanna be
money for the
downtown.
lights, we're happy to.
You
No, I
can't,
mean,
you
we
can't raise it.
much, but.
Michael Bloomberg couldn't raise enough money for those lights. The school construction
We're
authority
happy to
is,
bring our own lights
impossible.
if the theater was available.
yeah.
And you did go to Murray Bertram, right? Okay. All right. We're gonna, we're not gonna give up.
And BMCC doesn't work?
It's very expensive and
It
it
is
doesn't
expensive.
allow for this type of orchestra we have. They just performed at Carnegie Hall in November, a big orchestra.
Wow.
And it would be nice to keep it, in
This
the-
is really, this issue really highlights the inefficiencies of government. This is why people are Republicans, because this is a shame that a small dance group can't use a school that's fallow. The building is fallow, no one's using it, and it's just complete governmental inefficiency. Call it what it is. And it hurts our children.
When is Perlman opening?
And
That's a nice girder.
Isn't that soon?
Yeah, I don't know, that's,
Well.
it's pretty raw.
40 seats is what 840.
840.
Diatribe.
All right. So we're gonna keep on that.
Trying.
Yeah.
So
We're not
bad.
gonna give up. I mean, it's like, it is our constant problem down here. But I know that there is space, so we're gonna keep going.
Yeah, the Murray Bertram probably doesn't have a big enough stage, right? Because they have a big enough body,
I just know, I said this last year, I was in there a few times to rent the studio and the theater was fully open and available
right.
on many occasions. And
Yeah.
even if we had to bring our own lighting equipment, I did that when we rented
Yeah.
Fordham. We did Fordham University.
Oh, so you would want Murray Bertram if we could get it?
I would love Stuyvesant.
Uh-huh.
Right, so you
But
could
what
bring
I'm
your
saying
own
is
lighting
that
to
lighting's a
Stuyvesant.
challenge.
Right.
In the past,
Well, I don't think-
I've done shows at Fordham University and they said you have absolutely no lights to use. We brought in our own.
Oh, okay.
We can work around.
They don't have a
these
great
things.
sound
How
situation
about
there.
pace?
We
How
have
about
a
pace?
live orchestra. It's again, it's the fitting
Isn't big
37
enough.
musicians. It's really not that
At
easy.
pace, doesn't work.
You get the 37 musicians with the pit at Sty.
Yes, yes.
They're not
And
that
we have
tall.
a drop from the Metropolitan Opera House that is that size. It's very rare to find a stage like Stuyvesant that we can afford hiring 37 musicians.
Yeah, yeah.
We can only afford so much as a group.
What a perfectionist you are.
I don't know. I just keep trying every year.
Well,
And it's been a lot of years too.
Yeah.
we're not giving up. We are gonna find something. I feel positive
Not
about it.
fair.
Is there any reason it's for the lights or is it?
Well, that's one of the reasons that I know. I didn't fully,
Well,
I didn't ask him
I
for like
feel
a
bad to
reason.
be that direct.
The
but-
fact is, the woman deserves an answer.
Well,
That's,
the thing is,
that's-
who,
she deserves
didn't
an
we say
answer.
that there was like a change of who, like,
Well, our
Right.
APO changed like 3 times within the last 2
what's an
years.
APO?
right,
Sister Principal Organization, and this sort of thing is under their discretion.
right.
And like it used to be one person, then it was like another like temporary person, but then they were like booted out after the C30 process, and then a new person was put in. It's this, like his second year, so he doesn't like fully actually like know everything. And our principal is also like fairly new in the sense that he like I'm going to be graduating and he's going to be in his 4th year, but that doesn't mean he knows like
Right, so it's the idea of being connected to the
Yeah.
community is like even that much.
yeah. But I don't think he's like anti-community. Like it's like one of those things in which like the ED
Right.
no EDC came and like did a survey of the land before their the project that they're working on for resiliency, and like they had a whole meeting with him, and like after that he like literally like told us at SLT about it, like, and he's like good about those things. Like it's like he's a people's person,
Mhm.
so like I don't know. I don't.
So maybe to your point, you have to go see them,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's it.
That's great. that you
So we're
did.
just gonna do that.
Mention
That's so
one of-
good you
One
did
of the
that. Yeah.
letters in the packet, it doesn't say so, but it's a graduate from Stuyvesant. Her name's Liana Chow. She was a student of mine for years and now she's at Harvard, I think graduating next year. And the letter of support.
That's in there too? Okay, good.
2 Millennium students, Liana, community, just community.
These are for
folks
us,
that
right?
just-
Yeah. If anybody else wants to have one, put them here. Okay, great. I'm not gonna drop this. All
We
right?
have the same, I just want to say, in all of my programs, we run the programs in the school. We can't get evening use of the schools. Because it's either too expensive or they deny us, and I have to then go and talk to the principal, and then we sometimes work it out about 50%.
Right.
And
Also,
some,
it's not all principal's discretion. A lot of, if it's not during school time, it's on a weekend, it's actually
Yeah.
custodian's discretion.
it's very expensive, because if we're running 2 or 3 shows, it could be $5,000 for the cost of the
Yeah.
for the cost of the event. How much?
That's actually a good thing to know too, is that the custodians.
Right, if the custodian agrees, then the principal can like waive off.
Well, the custodians have to stay and
Yeah, because
be there.
Staff.
But it's like, do they also want to take on that additional responsibility?
Right.
The administration can't force them.
Right.
And at that,
Exactly.
that issue, and
But the administration has to agree to the idea, and then the custodian has to be willing to be there while it happens. So it's
3 people.
two-pronged.
Signed the permit, or 3 people signed the permit.
Each school's very different, and we know this from
Right.
our work with the, winter clinics that we have for downtown Little League. So 89,
No
custodian's
problem.
the only person we ever have to deal
The
with.
best.
Don't deal with the school admin at all, there's no indication he
The
deals
best
with
guy,
the school.
actually.
That's great.
234, don't deal with the custodian at all, it all comes from the principal,
Yeah.
and the SLT has to approve it.
Huh.
76 has a mixed, it's both the custodian sign off and,
Right.
so each school seems to have a different.
Next community board meeting is,
That's actually
next,
very helpful.
our general meeting is at 2:34. Next
Oh,
week, and Dana will be there to, in the public session to make I don't know what, but she's very excited about community involvement.
oh, good. That's great to hear.
Manhattan Youth took out, but the way we did it was Manhattan Youth took out the permit, because we were already in that school that night, so we took out the permit.
Awesome. Hope you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, we paid for it. That's okay.
And then quickly, I'm just going to report, for those of you who are at the full board meeting, you know that I had gone to the transportation meeting, which I now have to do to be able to talk about the Trinity Place traffic study that was under our jurisdiction. They felt that it was better for it to be at transportation. It's been quite a process, because there really are pedagogical reasons around why things have to be the way they are with this study, but I'm trying to do my best to straddle this, and I had a nice long email exchange with Betty to get her up to date with our, what is now 6 years of history
Right.
on this item. I am so happy to tell you all that the DOT came. I was ready for a fight, and they have agreed to close one lane of Edgar, the westbound lane. I really did not expect that. I am thrilled about it. I think they have come to understand that there's no way that 900 and some people are going to be able to fit in the front of the Dickey building. It's about 625 square feet, I found out. So it's smaller than this room, and it's 900 people. Anyway, so,
You're talking about that's their courtyard?
yes,
Yes.
that's the arrival courtyard.
That's what I remember. It's like an apartment size, like a
It's
small apartment.
teeny. It's just created by the
Studio.
setback of the Dickey building. So I saw the plans. I am going to bring the plans to the next meeting. They are pretty similar to the plans that Michael Mirasola presented to us. The update is good news, actually. More good news is that originally you'd enter on the Sims side of the Sims building, that's in the Dickey Plaza, and it was like you were faced with an elevator. Now there's a little more room in there. I don't know how they created it, but I wouldn't go as far as to call it a lobby. It kind of looks like LMC space, for those of you who are familiar with that mini
That
lobby.
little lobby.
So it has a little space, which is also super helpful. There is an emergency evacuation door, which I also did not know. I thought that they were evacuating out the same door, but there is an emergency room going out onto Greenwich. That's good news too.
At the back.
Yeah.
That is
that's the
good.
back. of
The
building.
back of the building's Greenwich, the front is Trinity Place.
So they have 2 exits technically.
Right now, they're gonna have 2 exits. It's
Which
an
is better.
It's an emergency exit.
But like that's better. In terms of
Right, before, they just had 1 exit after the school, which is obviously not ideal.
No,
How
no.
many elevators?
I think there's 4,
And will the kids be able to use the elevator?
not without an adult. So the teachers will take them up and they will bring them down. So it's K to 5. So, there's that. I'm sure there'll be elevator passes for the 5th graders towards the end of the year or something, but
So
no.
how does it work in the morning? The kids just go straight to the classroom?
Yeah, it's the same way it happens at LMC. Okay.
Right. But they're junior high school students.
True. But, you've got an adult downstairs and everybody comes piling in like a bunch of crazy people. And then they wait, they line up for elevators, and then the teachers make sure it's orderly as possible. And when they reach capacity, the elevators go up and then come back for another bunch, which is why we need the courtyard. And if it's raining, it's going to stink, But, I mean, we have that at 234, but they do have a ground level cafeteria that they funnel them into,
And a
which this
gym.
school does not have, and a gym. So it is going to still stink. One could argue that we should put in for a capital request for an overhang on the Dickey Plaza. But I mean, I'm not going to reach for the stars just yet. We'll
It's only
wait.
600 square feet though.
It is, but it would be better than nothing if it's sheeting rain and they're backed up trying to get into the elevator.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, so we'll be looking at that down the road. That's one of the reasons I really feel strongly it should be in youth. But I'm really trying to cooperate, and I'm dedicated to go. So I'm going to
Very nice.
continue going because I think, and if any of you can come, it'd be great to have some representation. I know no one needs an extra meeting. Wendy just agreed to take another committee. I was thrilled to hear she wasn't leaving this one. So everybody's really busy, but so I will go and report
I
back.
just dropped off of a transportation committee. It's just too much.
It's a lot. So we are the Transportation Committee, the DOT at that meeting also said that they are going to hold forums, community feedback forums on the traffic study plan, which we asked for, but I also didn't expect. So 2 great things came out of that meeting.
So we should send that invitation to PS 150.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So everybody is going to get it. It's going to be a blast. We're going to spend a lot of time pushing the word out on those charrettes. So know that the first one was supposed to be the end of March. So I'll keep everybody, well, I'm sure the office will keep everybody aware. So that was a thrill, really. I'm really excited. The only thing that was of concern after I left the meeting was that they also agreed to close the spur from the Battery Tunnel, which we had in our resolution, from 6 to 10 a.m. So that covers drop-off, which is the biggest time, right? But it doesn't cover after school. And what the reason they can't close the spur in the afternoon is because all the empty buses come from Lower Brooklyn and Staten Island to go up into the city and pick people up, and then come out a different route. They don't come back the same way. But so you've got this whole stream of empty buses that have to get up through the city through that route. So I shared my concerns. I think that's why they agreed to close the street, to be honest. So I just said thank you. And I do think that there's going to be a way. I'm going to ask for like a barrier, like they have protectionary barriers now, so you can't jump onto the spur from the Lisburger Plaza. So I'm going to think of railing and a gate.
Rockefeller Center, how they-
Exactly. So you
Yeah.
can't just jaywalk over to the,
We have on Chambers Street.
exactly. And I think we're going to lock those kids in and have them only be able to cross at Greenwich and Trinity Place and not jaywalk like we have at 89 to the ball fields. We're just going to fence them all in on that south side of Edgar, so that there's no danger getting too close to those buses. But it was a win. We are also talking about avoiding Trinity Place for the bus drop-off. So ongoing, forums next stop, pretty good news.
So where would the bus drop off?
They're thinking they're going to try to have it be at Greenwich, because if we're going to create this plaza on the south side of the school, an ideal quiet spot would be Greenwich and Edgar.
So
It's just turning around.
and that space would be available. That's not where the buses congregate between 3 and 6, right?
Well, I mean, they don't want them to be on Trinity Place.
So they
So-
don't want them on Trinity Place.
No.
So can a bus stop on Trinity Place and pick up children?
As of right now, they can't, but if the DOT changes the no standing, if they change the parking situation and the subway situation.
What do you mean they can't, but it says no room, or that?
Right now, you have the ability to be a commercial vehicle and park. You've got 3 subway entrances.
Starting at what time?
I'd have to look. And you have 3 subway entrances, so it's a nightmare, and we just really have to. If they
Have
don't,
to look at it more closely, because we bring a bus in, we'll have to bring a bus in there. Right now, the 150 kids walk to the center after school, but we're gonna have to send the bus over there if they wanna go like to ceramics or swimming. We're planning to send the bus to that school, so how do you get the bus in? I don't know yet.
they might have to create a turnaround for
No,
that.
we could turn the bus around, it's just where do the kids get on?
Ideally, Greenwich and Edgar.
And they can go out the back entrance.
Hmm.
That's not so bad.
Or they go out the front entrance and around their nice plaza. Do you know what I'm saying? The whole thing connects
I
now.
have to look,
Are they
I don't
planning,
know.
like how there's like a path with like a separator between the 2 lanes.
That's what she said,
So they're connecting that.
yeah.
They're paving over it.
It's a waste of space.
It is a waste of space.
Yeah.
So they're going to pave over the whole thing from the sidewalk to that median, and then we're going to put up a rail. And
Even so, it's gonna be tight,
it still will be tight.
it's gonna be tight.
But like, it's a lot better than.
It's 30.
just that
It's going to be
straight
close
path
to
of
30
street,
feet.
Which has like no purpose to it.
Yeah.
So say the 150 kids are used to coming up the stairs and having the big plaza to run around. That will be a big change.
It will, but I mean, if we get that 30, I walked it off with my feet. I think it's 30 by 50 feet that we will be creating. That's 1,500 square feet. It's a short block.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 buses can't fit on it. I think this is a huge mistake to have buses coming out. But so anyway, I think if we get that space, it will then connect that little courtyard around the south end of the building, and then the buses can meet it at Greenwich. It'll be a much safer option.
Walking the kids out of the building, though, is not as good as walking the kids straight onto the bus.
Correct. Which that won't happen because they can't park on Greenwich unless they make Greenwich a one-way street, and nobody was into that idea. I can tell you, we started talking about it, and everybody's face was like. So I think they really need. I think everybody that lives in Greenwich South, in terms of deliveries, relies upon.
And realize that Live Nation place
Yeah.
is gonna be opening
Rock
up
and
just a
roll.
few
We're gonna
blocks
bring the
up.
kids there. We're gonna bring the kids there.
Yeah, we all need to go to that meeting too.
I think,
What do we got?
I don't know if it's a definite, but it sounded,
Yeah.
Like
Live
it.
Nation.
the other 3,000 people.
But I thought we were trying to block that.
Yeah, just like we blocked the what's it, the Buddha bar.
The Buddha Bar. We blocked that
That's
sucker.
open. No, it's opening, right?
The Buddha Bar?
I thought they
No.
had construction going on there. They withdrew
Oh, I
their
thought we-
own. We didn't block it. We denied it, but they still got the permit.
I didn't know that they got the
I-
permit.
Something's been going on there though.
Oh. Yeah, no, we have to.
Off the like the opposite to the east. What are you talking?
Well,
Is it the old Buddha bar space or?
there's a lot of rock and roll happening these days. We got the Buddha Bar, we got the City Winery, and we got
Nation.
Live Nation, and we got the Manhattan Youth Chambers Players on Sunday at 2:00.
Right in there. I was hoping Andrew would give us a quick report, but I'll put him on for March just to see how our DLL is coming along this year. He went to the Pier 40 meeting.
I'm on the task force.
Oh, you are? Would you like to give us any information? Any updates?
The task force had their first meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and they're a very well represented bunch of elected officials. Gail was there, a couple of state legislators. From our community board, it's me and Paul and Andrew. I'm the chair of the advisory council for another 45 days, and well, that's my term's up. And that was an introductory meeting by Field, the consultants, and they are trying to figure out where to put the tow pound and what to do with Pier 40 and the tow pound. If anybody has any ideas on our committee here, let me know. I have suggested just to be inflammatory, to put the tow pound on Pier 40. So that is the type of thinking.
What
that
is a
peop-
tow pound,
The
if I
tow
might
pound
ask?
is where the,
It's, yeah.
the
More-
police runs it.
That was that's in the thirties, no?
Yeah, up there,
it's all
but,
the way up there.
but the tow pound is not part of Hudson River Park yet. But the governor wrote a letter saying that the tow pound has to move, or else they gotta give the Hudson River Park $3 million a month and $1 million a month for the next 12 months earlier. So I said, okay, let's take the money permanently and put it onto Pier 40. So most
How big is
people-
this thing?
Most people didn't like it,
Of course.
but you know,
Huge.
some people
Is
did.
where the police tow all the cars?
Yes, when you get your car towed, that's where you go. There's one in every borough.
There's no room for it at Pier 40.
Well, there's
Well, there's parking there now.
there's parking there
Bob
now,
said
and there
get
is
rid of the
there is
parking.
all that space is not used. I'm not saying there is space there. I'm just saying to look at that option. There are 3 more options that I have, that other people have, that they're going to give, and you know, it's an interesting thing. Andrew's not here. Chris, looks one day this is going to be the bane of your existence. Okay, so let's say they don't build on Pier 40, they don't retrofit it, right? So I'm a parent of a 9-year-old. I'm happy that the governor vetoed the legislation, because then for the next 5 years, I don't have to deal with the closing of the fields or possible construction. So if they can do something without changing the act, within the configuration of Pier 40, I'm not advocating it. I'm, as a task force member, I'm just throwing stuff out.
Well, that's the way I
see-
thought about it when Pier 25 closed down, when Kendall was, 4,
Right.
and then it didn't open it up
For
again, so
7
they
years.
were big,
Mhm.
and we missed that whole window.
You
So-
missed the good times on the
Yeah.
pier. So
so it's
yes,
whatever-
that's
it's
exactly
always the way it is.
that's
Yeah.
exactly right. And
Somebody's
no one's giving us any data to make a decision. But Carl Weisbrod is there, and these consultants, these architects. So we'll see.
When's your next meeting?
What the next meeting, we meet every Friday at
Do you really?
8:30 in the morning.
Oh, I can't wait.
No, it's not open. It's the trust chose. Trust
Is
chose.
Andrew on it too?
Yes, me,
So
Andrew,
the two
and
of you.
Paul attend those meetings. And Anthony came last time.
9 a.m.
He
on
came
Friday morning?
8:30 on Friday morning.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'm going. I go there. I did want to say one other thing. Did you guys see the article in the Times about certain PTAs collecting a lot of money and certain PTAs not having money, and some DOE plan to
It comes up from time to time.
comes
Yeah,
up from
this is
time
not-
to time.
This is not a new concept.
No.
Right? And is there any traction of that at the DOE?
So the thing is, the quick answer is sort of. But, schools have been funding the gap that was created by the 2008 cuts. And they never restored the Contracts for Excellence Fund either. And so what's happening is the schools are fundraising to create a curriculum.
Some schools are.
Some schools are successful,
Right.
some schools are not.
Right.
And so it's creating a haves and have-nots, which is, you can't talk about justice without looking at that.
Right.
And so as we were looking to the diversity committee at the community education committee or council, that came up while that was being discussed, right? So there's this big problem with diversity in our schools. And so they launched that discussion about the fundraising around that time. Like Wendy said,
When was that?
it's no surprise to either of us because we, when I got to 234, I said, why aren't we picking a sister school and sharing what we earn, with schools that cannot fundraise?
I'm
And they're
not-
like, you can't, it's against DOE, the chancellor's regs.
I'm not advocating for one position or another. I'm just asking if this should be eventually a topic of the youth committee, and if it is, there's a lot of parents who have very strong opinions about it.
I don't
There
think
i-
the DO's gonna change their policy on it.
You don't think so?
I don't
Okay.
think so. Politically, they're never gonna be able to change that policy.
There's a similar issue. I own a place on 10th Street that I built myself, and the HPD is trying to take my apartment away from me and make it into restrictive. I don't know if, Chris, if you've heard the HDFCs.
Yeah.
So I'm involved with that now. It's the same, and it's the same type of thing, and it was taught to me that it's progressive policy going astray. I think it's the second, yeah.
But I don't think it's accurate. I don't,
Yeah.
I think this is just a way for the mayor to try to renege on all those contracts
On which ones?
on the HDS.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
100%.
yes, that, to try to make himself look good for low-income housing, and, that is, and he's got allies in the assembly, Harvey Epstein, who I'm talking to, hopefully, but this is not the committee, we don't have a housing committee, yeah, and there's,
No.
I don't live in Community Board 1, so, but it's the same type of thing that if, we built that place and we funded it, and now I think the parents of PS 234 would say, we're not gonna fundraise for another school.
I think you'd be surprised. All 5 years I was on the PTA there,
I think you'd have to have a separate, people give for very different reasons.
Yeah.
Correct.
Some kids wanna give for their specific classroom to make sure their kid reads the books that are bought. And then
Right.
some people are happy to give broadly, so you'd have to have like a separate,
Yeah, but
this is gonna be a partner
but
fund.
what you've worked so hard on for many years, something like the Taste of Tribeca,
I was gonna say,
It-
it would be, we've
Well,
gone
right.
down the diluting it with more schools, you're gonna get less volunteers, and you're gonna less parent involvement, and.
I think we should keep an eye on this
So
subject.
and I
what
think it's very
the
dangerous.
CEC,
Right.
the whole conversation came back to,
Yeah,
it was
less involvement.
it was really actually pretty litigious, because I sort of err on the side of first things first, and you can't talk about that fundraising until you talk about restoring fair student funding.
Right.
So that they have to restore
Right.
the budget cuts. I mean, and just for those who might not be familiar, the budget cut at PS 234, and it was the same percentage at all the schools. But I happen to know, because I was on the PTA at the time, in 2009, that budget cut equaled $910,000. So in 2008
I
they had
remember.
it, and in 2009 they didn't. And she was charged to run that school with $900,000 less. So as a business person, if someone ever said that to me,
You'd be done.
I'd be like, we're done. And I still don't know how, I don't know how Lisa Rippiger did it.
Yeah,
I mean,
the PTA at one
well, they
point,
raised
all of a sudden we paid
$800,000.
Right.
You know, I mean, that was, we were paying people.
I'd say we keep an eye on this. I mean, it would be,
So
Like,
really
if you wanna,
complicated.
you wanna
I mean, like,
fire
you're
museum.
talking about, people wanna donate to a charity of their choice.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can't stop them.
That's their choice.
there's a whole bunch of
I
things.
know, I
that-
mean, it's like almost
You-
like
Yeah,
putting a
yeah,
tax
yeah,
on
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
You're talking
I
about,
think
you're talking
that's
about
the
people's
very
children, they're not,
You can pay for
There
counselors
could
on
be,
campus.
I think there could be sort of local initiatives to,
Right.
and I think there are some, I feel like I've seen, like, we've sent books to other schools and stuff like
Right.
that, like, that's, I think, the better answer.
There are, but they need to hire the teachers. That's the bottom line, and because of the budget cuts, they can't. So if you can't hire an art teacher and a music teacher, you don't have art and music.
Right.
And so many of the schools don't have it, and the schools that can fundraise do, and it creates inequity. But the DOE is creating the inequity themselves. So for me, it's a first things first, and not a Pied Piper
I
situation.
agree,
So,
and they have
agree with
no
that.
way of
Not
monitoring.
just put it on the parents,
yes.
let's just put it on the parents to fundraise for multiple schools.
Well, I mean, I said, my comment at that point was, if we're at that point with public education and you really can't afford it in New York State, then at that point we should be talking sliding scale tuition for public schools. Because we can't continue like we are. This is a really bad system, okay? It's not diverse. You have, the haves are able to fund these programs, and and everybody, like including the chancellor, keeps talking about we have to create more equity. I'm like, okay, you're sitting
It's
on
not
the
right.
bomb.
Right.
It's it's not a lot of money either, if you're talking about,
Right.
like you just said, you lost $900,000 at 234. We don't, 234 doesn't raise $900,000.
Yes, they do.
They raise 8,
They raise 8?
8, 10.
It's been a long time since I've been, and what you gotta be, and I don't know, here's another pet peeve of mine, because we did have it with the Little League, we did have it with 234. Those counts, the principals have to monitor those expenditures, because if they leave it to just anybody, one day, the shit's gonna hit the.
No, they're
Yeah.
really specific about the
No,
things.
no, no.
Like Ernest and Young, like literally comes in and they like look at every single transaction.
Yeah.
You have to-
Where?
Like at every single like school, like you have to have like your account transactions are monitored.
Who,
by the
who
DOE.
they get, who audits, they audit the
The DOE audits every school's.
They do.
did they audit Taste of Tribeca?
Yeah.
Yes.
They audit every
Did they
PTA.
audit Taste of Tribeca?
Taste of Rebecca is a registered nonprofit,
Right.
and as a registered nonprofit.
They don't
we
fall
do
under
So,
DOE.
so I've never heard that the auditors of DOE,
Yeah,
I know they have the right to audit, but I've never heard of an
No,
audit.
they actively
I'll
audit
ask the
schools.
principals.
They actively audit schools. Like
Yeah, I've never.
usually schools every 2 to 4 years they'll get something for like the last 2 years.
Oh, I see. Okay, I haven't heard
It's
of
not
them
every-
auditing
because
anybody.
There's just way too many schools for them. And same thing goes for like PTAs, but
But
the
you're-
PTA account kind of lives.
but Bob, you're right, if your treasurer is a flake one year, you can not
It's
pay your
happened,
taxes or,
it's happened,
not
yeah,
file
it's happened,
taxes.
and you don't pay, and
Not
they
just
and
fraud,
let me
it's
tell you, they
fraud.
violate employer, my daughter's an employment lawyer now, they violate employment law
Right,
and report
All that
it.
stuff
They
is-
do it all the time,
yeah.
but it gets the job done for the kids,
Yes.
that's the problem. I mean, we wouldn't have all these art teachers.
Well, I mean, it's been a problem forever, but it really, they have to, we can't,
It's an elementary school issue, it's not a high school issue.
It's not a middle school issue, PS 89,
Yeah, it's not.
I mean, IS 89, they're nothing, I
Yeah,
don't think.
it's not a middle school and it's not a high school.
well, I mean, it just, it's definitely, it would be, if they restored the funding, we'd at least be at a place where we can have a sustainable curriculum, and then we could talk about all that stuff then, I mean, but they still haven't done that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Our alumni day, yeah.
raise some money,
Organize a match.
going out to
We
raise,
don't have-
I'm a
I mean,
terrible
I don't think
fundraiser.
any of the special